Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button if you guys are enjoying the content that we're throwing up. And make sure you guys hit the like button if you enjoy the video. And yeah, let's begin. Okay, FYI, for those of you guys, for those of you guys who haven't seen Endgame yet, this is gonna have Endgame spoilers. I don't know anybody who hasn't seen Endgame yet, but again, like, tickets were pretty hard to come by when they first went on sale. It sold like that, like it's sold out in almost the blink of an eye. Normally people cover Marvel Comics today, but this is more important. And so, the question people have is, what comes next in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? Like, what now? Now that all this stuff has gone down, all this stuff has happened, and essentially, like, the Avengers have totally been shifted up. Well, here's the thing. Like, what I want to see, and I think what most everybody wants to see, is, like, the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. And here's the reason why. While this is technically called the Infinity Saga, this last 10 years, you can really just kind of get away with calling it like the Avengers era, right? Because it was all about the Avengers. It was the formation of the Avengers. It was how the Avengers function once they're made. It's like the first big threat they face after they face Loki when the team officially forms. So you go on to Ultron, then you go on to Thanos, and the on-running theme, the whole undercurrent to all this, these last 10 years, whatever it was, is that you basically had like Thanos trying to gather the Infinity Stones, and it all comes to a head in Avengers Endgame. So the question becomes, what comes next? Okay, so my thought is looking at phase 4, right? Because it's way too early to talk about phase 5. But my thought is looking at phase 4, rolling in the X-Men and rolling in the Fantastic Four. Ideally, I would like to see Secret Wars. And as far as I'm aware, the Russo brothers are toying around with the idea, but I would want to see Secret Wars, right? And actually, one of the films on this list here that I have actually kind of sets up for it, or at least offers like a really, really early setup for it. So, in the MCU with phase 4, the films that we're listing off here, as far as I'm aware, have not started filming yet and haven't even really started pre-production. They're just ideas that exist out there and they want to release them somewhere along the line. A few of them have, like Black Widow has started pre-production, so on and so forth, and the filming of it actually starts in June of this year. So, or I guess 2019 anyway. So here's the thing. For me, when it comes to introducing the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, it's all about the slow build. Remember how you felt when you saw like Captain America's shield in Iron Man, or like the post-credit scene with Thor's hammer, or when like Tony Stark walks in and talks to Thunderbolt Ross about the Avengers, or even the post-credit scene in the first Iron Man when Nick Fury says, "I want to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative." Like how cool was that? Like, remember how you felt? Because from that point going forward, from Iron Man going forward, it was Easter eggs. It was a scavenger hunt, right? It was like, what do we see in this movie? Both obvious clues and non-obvious clues that indicate like what's coming later on down the line, what characters we're gonna see, and like how they show up. And so looking at this, my first thought goes to Black Widow. Now, the Black Widow film, as far as I'm aware, and from what they've said, is that it should be a sequel that takes place in the 2000s before she shows up in Iron Man 2, which is cool. Because, again, with Avengers Endgame, Black Widow's dead and gone. Now, they've said that once a person sacrifices their life in order to gain the soul from the Soul Stone from wherever it comes from, Soul World, that basically like there's no way to make them return. I don't think that's true. I think it's just like there's no way to make them return because we haven't thought of one yet. But as soon as like they need to bring Black Widow back, which I don't know why you would, but as soon as they're like, we need to bring Black Widow back, well then suddenly they figured out a way. Doctor Strange is like, oh, I found a spell that lets me go into the afterlife and barter with Mistress Death and release the soul of Black Widow, and she's back now. That probably won't happen, since the Marvel Cinematic Universe is kind of a combination of Earth 98 and the Ultimate Universe. For the guys who don't know, Earth 98 was an alternate universe in Marvel Comics where heroes aged in real time, and then of course the Ultimate Universe was what if heroes existed right now. So it's kind of a merge, kind of a blend between the two. But assuming Black Widow is a prequel, what you do is you basically have some scenario where like she's working with S.H.I.E.L.D. or whatever government she's with, she's with like the Russians or whatever, where they send her on a mission and she has to work alongside Team X, and that's it. That's literally the X-Men, the X-Men being rolled in. And here's the reason why. Team X was a Black Ops wet work team in Marvel Comics that Wolverine, Sabretooth, and a handful of other people were a part of before they were brought into Weapons Plus, right? Like they worked for the CIA. And when I say a Black Ops team, they did it all, right? They toppled governments, they killed political officials, they did it all. Like if a hit was taken out on you, like if the government was like, we're sending Team X after you, you were gonna die. And that's just the way it was. And they would perform their missions in a couple different ways. Either they would do like the Hand, where they basically snuck in and they were really clandestine and really, really quiet and nobody knew they were there. there, they were in and out before anybody had any idea what happened, and like they would kill you without waking up the cat, or they would go in just guns blazing, right? They would just like shoot everything up, and that would be the end of that. They were like the Trimmer brothers from Smoking Aces. They would go in and just shoot everything up and kill like 21 people just to get to one guy. Like it was nuts. But because of the fact it was really kind of like the CIA basically saying, what would happen if we took individuals who had powers and then turned them into a Black Ops team and then send them out to perform missions. Now, after that, eventually Weapons Plus learned about them, and they were thrown into the Weapons Plus program, and they became Weapon 10. So, or Weapon X, as a lot of you guys would call it. But like you literally have her fight alongside them, and like you don't really see it happen. Like you don't see like Wolverine, Sabretooth, you don't see all those guys. It's just she reports back from like some mission, right? Where like you have that scene from Captain America where they were like, or Captain America the Winter Soldier, I think, where they were like, they had just gotten back from some mission and then they were going on another one. That's literally what you do. And it's just like, how did things go with Team X? And it's like, oh man, things were crazy. Dude, that guy James Howlett and Victor Creed, those guys are crazy. I'm really kind of worried they're gonna lose their minds one day. James Howlett being Wolverine, Victor Creed being Sabretooth, Easter egg, done. And like they're in the MCU. From there, you go to the Eternals. And the Eternals film, that's the movie that explains why mutant genes exist in the first place. And that's it, literally. Like you don't do it on the nose. You just say like, at some early point in human history, the Celestials showed up on Earth and they modified the genes of early man, and like 1/3 of the group that was experimented on, the Wanderers is what they were called, but one group of the Wanderers were experimented on and they became the Deviants, which were basically trolls and monsters. The second group became angelic beings who were the Eternals, and the third, their genes would manifest somewhere along the line. And you literally say like they mutated their genes and they'll manifest somewhere along the line. Bam, X-Men, like literally just like, okay, so this is where mutants come from. This is the origin of the mutant population. And that's it. It's not like a plot. It's not like a third of the movie, right? Like the first third of the movie is not the Eternals being like, we're modifying genes and mutants will arrive in like 50,000 years. You don't say that. It's just, it's one of those things where like the audience will understand and those that don't will have it explained to them by me. So from there, you go into Doctor Strange 2, and Doctor Strange 2 sets up Secret Wars. And the way this plays out is you basically have Doctor Strange doing whatever he's doing, some campaign, some mission, or whatever it is that's going on, and he's passing through dimensions, and one of the dimensions he passes through is the Beyondverse, or the Beyond Dimension, or whatever it is. And like literally, okay, so here's the thing about the Beyonders. The Beyonders are beings, you have two versions of them, right? You have the Beyonder from the original Secret Wars in 1984, and then you have the Beyonders from Jonathan Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers. The Beyonders from Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers did not look anything like the original Beyonder. And the question was, why do they have the same name if they're totally different? And Hickman answered that and said the way it worked out was that the original Beyonder from Secret Wars in 1984, he was a child unit. He was basically a kid. And like the Beyonders that you saw in Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers, they were grown adults, and they were pissed. They killed everybody. Dude, it was, man, oh my God. Okay, here's the thing. I understand, like some people are just kind of like, oh my God, here we go again. Yes, here we go again. I know I always go off on tangents whenever it comes to Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers. Dude, the Beyonders killed everything. They killed everyone and everything. The only things that did not die were Mistress Death and the One Above All. And that was it. Like everything else was dead. Oblivion was dead. Galactus was dead. All the Celestials were dead. All the cosmic entities, infinity, eternity, the whole 9 yards, they were all dead in every universe that existed, right? Like it wasn't just the main Marvel universe, it was this battle happening across the entire multiverse. So like imagine a battle, imagine the same conflict happening across every single universe at the same time. That's literally what it was. The Living Tribunal shows up, the walking, talking, living embodiment of the multiverse, virtually nigh omnipotent, almost completely indestructible, was wiped out by the Beyonders. They killed everyone, right? Like it was crazy. Anyway, the way this plays out is you say, okay, so Doctor Strange is passing through dimensions or whatever, and like piques the interest of the original Beyonder, basically like a child. And this child's like, I wonder who that guy is and where he's going, because it doesn't know anything outside of its own realm, right? So it's like, I wonder who that guy is and where he's going. And it follows him and then follows him back to the main Marvel universe and then just watches. And basically like you have all these events that are transpiring that pique the interest of the Beyonder. And that goes into like the movie that comes out 10 years from now, Secret Wars, where the Beyonders, like all the villains and all the heroes, you all get to fight each other. And like that's literally where that comes from. So that sets that up, right? Like that's the long game setup. That's not an immediate setup. That's the long game setup. Now, here's one of the really cool things. All right, then the next two ones I think are the coolest ones. Black Panther 2 sets up the Fantastic Four, and here's the reason why. My initial thought was like, okay, so basically like humanity is going to want to chart the stars one day, right? Because I didn't like the idea that I had was before the events of Avengers Endgame, right? So I was looking at Infinity War, and I was saying, okay, somewhere along the line, like Thanos invades Earth, humanity realizes there's threats outside of the world beyond like what they saw in the first Avengers, and like while that threat was stopped, like there are those who are going to come to Earth and try to like annihilate humanity or something like that. So basically like humans need to achieve interstellar travel, and so they go to Wakanda because at the end of Black Panther, you know, T'Challa said we want to open our borders up to the world and we want to become more involved with the world. We don't want to be like isolated and totally shut off. And so as a result, Black Panther, like literally what humanity would do is they would go to Black Panther and they would say, hey, look, like we want to kind of merge your technology with ours and then achieve interstellar travel. That was my original idea. But at the end of Avengers Endgame, Thanos' ship is on Earth. And so because of the fact that it's on Earth, it's taken by the federal government. But Tony Stark is dead. And so the feds are just kind of like, well, we don't know how to make heads or tails of this thing. Like we don't know how all this stuff works. And so what they end up doing is they basically say, okay, we've got this like genius, Reed Richards or whatever it is. So literally you have Reed Richards who kind of works on it a little bit, but even Reed Richards is kind of struggling a bit. So what they do is they grab Shuri and they bring Shuri in from Wakanda. And this is not the plot of the movie, right? Like it's some side thing. Shuri's like, well, I've got to go to America to help the Americans with like technology because you know how stupid they are or something like that. I don't know, but like regardless, Shuri ends up working with like Reed Richards and the government in order to reverse engineer all of Thanos' technology, and then in turn, like Reed Richards and the company are going to be the ones who are going to launch the ship into space as part of SWORD, and they're going to be the ones who basically explore the universe. Like the SWORD being the Sentient World Observation and Response Department. For those of you guys who are new, think of SHIELD, except they monitor space instead of just Earth. And so what would happen is like in this first encounter, like it would just be a scene, and then it would go into a post credits or something like that. But Shuri would like meet Reed Richards, and he would be like, hey Shuri, thanks for helping us. I'm Reed Richards. She's like, I'm Shuri. Awesome to meet you. Done. Like that's it. Fantastic Four in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's as simple as that. Then you go into Shang-Chi, and Shang-Chi I think would be cool, right? Now, here's the funny thing. Back when Iron Fist first launched, people were just like, they should make Iron Fist Asian. Yeah, that makes sense because only Asian people know martial arts. Like, obviously not true. And then my other thought was, well, that's kind of a stupid thing to do because like there's already an Asian master martial artist. His name is Shang-Chi. So it's cool that we're getting Shang-Chi in the MCU, but I wouldn't make like the X-Men, like I wouldn't do it like super on the nose, right? Like it'd be one of the coolest Easter eggs. So what you do is you have Shang-Chi actually cross over for a second with Spider-Man, and Shang-Chi teaches Spider-Man the way of the spider. Those of you guys who don't know, the way of the spider is actually Peter Parker's martial arts style that was taught to him by Shang-Chi. And what you end up doing here is you basically say that like when Peter Parker gets in there, because you guys know how Tom Holland is as Peter Parker, he's just so curious about everything. So he gets in there and he's like looking around and touching things and looking at things and so on and so forth, and like picks up this sword, and Shang-Chi's like, do not touch that sword. That's the Muramasa blade. And so he's like, it's super important, something like that. Put it back. And so Peter Parker puts it back. But the Muramasa blade in the MCU is huge because in Marvel Comics, it's the only weapon that can kill Wolverine, like keep him dead permanently. And in the comics, he was encased in adamantium, and that's one of the ways it killed him. But in terms of weapons, nothing will kill him except the Muramasa blade. Carbonadium slows his healing factor, but as long as he takes time to recover, then his healing factor will go back to the way it was. The Muramasa blade will shut down his healing factor in its entirety. You stab him with the Muramasa blade, and his healing factor is gone. Same thing with Deadpool. Like it's the only way to really kill them. And so literally, like the only weapon that can kill Wolverine exists in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and is in the possession of Shang-Chi, the master martial artist, right? Like the guy that everybody goes to whenever like it's like, hey, we need some guy who can fight really well, or like we need training in martial arts. I love the idea of slow builds, right? And I don't remember if I have another one in here or not. I think that's where it stops, is with Shang-Chi. Yeah, and then Guardians 3 introduces Adam Warlock. But that's my pitch. Like that's my idea. How to slow build the X-Men into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And then from there, if you want to start rolling in things like Xavier, and you want to start rolling in like the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, that's a thing on the news, right? Like there's some movie somewhere or something, whatever movie it happens to be, and like somebody's watching TV for a second, and it's like, and the Xavier School of Gifted Youngsters, and then you know they go to do whatever it is that they end up doing, but it's like a small little mention or something like that. Or like, you know, there was actually somebody who mentioned in my comments or on Twitter or something like that, they were talking about Doctor Doom, and they were saying like you know, people are like social media is still upset with Dr. Doom for refusing to allow people to enter Latveria following like the events of Avengers Endgame or something like that, or like Latveria is still cut off from the rest of the world and no one knows how like the whole snap impacted them or whatever the case is. But like something to show that Latveria is super secretive and like Dr. Doom does not let anyone in or anyone out. But still, like there's a lot of ways to roll these characters into the MCU because the slow build is what people like. That's what people love. People love Easter eggs. They love going on a hunt. They love trying to figure out this clue and that clue and that clue and see how it ties into the bigger picture and how it will all come together. Let me know what you guys think. I'm really kind of curious to see what your all stance is. But with that being said, we're gonna bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like and I will catch you all later. Peace.